welcome to the Explore and More show. I'm Ken Conan, the rookie, and I've got our expert with us, Mr. Ted Blank. How are you, Ted?
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
You as well. Thanks for joining me. Summer's we had the fair wrap up over across the river recently, and
we did.
Putting a bow on summer, or at least getting close to it.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of the end of the season, one of those hot, cold days.
That's right. That's right. And what's new in the travel world? What's going on before we get into our trip?
Well, it's always interesting that once Labor Day comes along, all of a sudden the phone starts ringing off the hook.
Really?
And it's really true. And people have kind of had the summer, either they've taken trips themselves and they've traveled, or they've gone up to their cabins on the lake, or they've kind of done whatever, and now they're ready to get serious about planning those 2025 trips. And so it's a good time to be doing it. The travel companies, the cruise lines know that people are in the market right now, so they put out a lot of real attractive promotions to kind of just goose people into gear and get those trips planned. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think we've talked about it a little bit before, but remind me from a timing perspective, when we think of trips and what we're going to start, we're going to call you and your team now. Are we looking at 24 still, or are we probably talking 25, 26 right now?
We're looking a little bit at 2024. I'd say that's mostly done. If you wanted to go on a river cruise this fall, we could maybe find a cabin or two, but they're pretty full. And so we're looking at 2025 and even 2026, and believe it or not, 2027.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because a lot of folks, they learn about a river cruise, they go on their first river cruise, they love it so much, they want to take the next one and the next one, and they know that it's good to have those trips planned because you'll get the best cabins, the best fares, everything when stuff is kind of the inventory is the freshest. So we have a lot of folks who will have 3, 4, 5 trips on the books waiting, and as soon as 2027 opens, they book right into that. Wow, so it's great. It's great to be able to plan that far ahead. Not everybody can, but if you can, it's good to be able to do that.
That's awesome. My wife and I are now empty nesters, and we're finding that we're able to plan a little bit more.
You can, absolutely. I think there are kind of 2 milestones that really send folks to us for the first time. And one is empty nest, and the other one is retirement or impending retirement. And that really does give folks the opportunity to plan ahead. The year, they don't have to build around the school calendar or the work calendar anymore. And so if you were in a job where summer was your busy time, when you retire, you've got summer back. And we've got lots of great opportunities for you to get out and explore the world in the summer and all over the year.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited about the trip today. It's a place and an area of the world. I don't know. I'm a rookie, so I don't know a lot about it at all, and I'm really excited to hear about where you're going to take us today.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a river cruise on the Danube River. And the Danube River is actually a really long river. Don't ask me how many miles long it is, but it's a really long river, and it basically goes through Germany, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, the old Czechoslovakia.
Wow.
And it actually keeps going through Eastern Europe all the way to the Black Sea.
Wow.
So it's a river that's used for freight traffic, just like the Mississippi or the Columbia River. And it's also become one of the most popular river cruise destinations in Europe. And so we're going to talk about a river cruise that's a new option in 2025 that kind of puts a little twist on the traditional river cruise, makes it simpler, makes it a little bit shorter of a trip. So if you want to, if you only have 7-10 days to go to Europe, this is a really great opportunity to see a lot of the Danube in a condensed time frame.
Awesome. Well, tell us, where do we fly into?
Yeah, so the nice thing about this cruise, and it's very unusual for a river cruise, is that it's a round trip cruise from Budapest in Hungary. So you'll fly into and out from the same city. And Budapest has a big international airport, so it's easy to get to from, any major U.S. airport will probably have at least one connection, but it's an easy place to get in Europe. And it's one of those beautiful, very unsung cities that I think most people haven't really heard too much about. Yeah, and part of it is because it was that's very common, and part of it is because it was behind the Iron Curtain for so long. Hungary was a communist country after World War II. But even then, it's a pretty far distance from the big capitals of Europe, Paris and London. They speak Hungarian, which is a very strange language. Don't ask me to give you any Hungarian. But it's a beautiful city. It has a lot of the same kind of architecture that Paris has. It has some beautiful wide boulevards. And it's a very historic city, and actually a very important historical city. The Habsburg Empire was actually the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And they had 2 capitals, Vienna and Budapest.
Ooh,
and so
okay.
Budapest was kind of a secondary capital of this huge global power back in the day. And so it has some incredible public buildings, the former royal palace, the parliament building, which you've probably seen pictures of. And it's kind of a combination of the US Capitol and the British Parliament. It's located right along the river, but it has beautiful parks, and Hungarian food is actually very interesting. They have goulash. That's kind of the national dish. But I got to tell you, Ken, it's nothing like the goulash you probably had in school, that you and I had in school. So it's very, very different. But they like their spices, and they love paprika. That's sort of the national spice.
okay.
But there are so many variations on paprika that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting place to start and end a river cruise. And a lot of the Danube cruises will either start or end there. But this one is actually a round trip from Budapest. So you get enough time to really spend some quality time in the city.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what would you say if you were going to put a highlight or two on our reel for Budapest? What would you say? Here's your first highlight.
I would say the first highlight is actually the Parliament building, seeing that from the outside. And the other highlight is to go up the hill to the former royal palace. And the views there are iconic. Really? There's a little place that's called the Fisherman's Overlook, and people have maybe seen pictures of it. It's one of those kind of Instagrammable spots. But the panoramic views from Budapest are really impressive.
Awesome.
And then the thermal baths. And it's a place that the city is full of hot, naturally heated baths. And so you can go swimming in sort of the world's largest hot tub. And that's a national pastime. And so these are beautiful, ornate, turn of the 19th, 20th century buildings, which have just these beautiful, beautiful pools. And so it's a neat city, and a lot of things you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, I would have never guessed that's interesting. That's great. So out of Budapest, we board our ship.
Board the ship.
And what kind of ship is this?
Yeah, so this will be, this river cruise is with a company called Ama Waterways.
Yes.
And I like to always talk about kind of the good, the better, and the best. And they fit just squarely right in that the better category, which means they're going to include more than some of the other river cruise lines, but they aren't completely inclusive.
Okay.
But one of the nice things is you always have a choice of shore excursions. So you might be interested in a museum, you might be interested in a hike, you might be interested in a culinary experience. They'll have all those options available for you.
And just to be clear, those are all included with Ama Waterways.
Those are all included with Ama Waterways. They'll be included in the price. And the ship carries about 150 guests. So a nice size ship, very spacious, comfortable ship. And we're going to head up the Danube River to the city of Bratislava, which is the capital of Slovakia.
Say that
which
5
is another,
times.
I know, say that 5 times. It's another place that people haven't really heard too much about. But it's a beautiful little river city. It has a big castle that overlooks a real nice historic downtown. It's very walkable. And the bridge across the river, it isn't one of those classic bridges from before World War II. It got destroyed. So it kind of looks like something out of the Jetsons.
Really?
It's kind of a cool bridge. So yeah, I won't spoil it for people, but maybe we can pop a photo of the bridge in this video.
Interesting. So some real modern bridge in town.
Very modern bridge. Yep.
Interesting.
And then an overnight call in Vienna.
Oh gosh.
And what an incredible European city. I mean, worth a trip in and of itself. So much history there, so much culture. The concerts, the beautiful buildings, the Lipizzaner stallions, those white horses. I mean, there is just so much in Vienna. And the ship spends the night there. So you have plenty of time to explore, plenty of free time, as well as some nice included tours. And so a lot of folks want to go to a concert in Vienna, a classical music concert. So that's something that we can arrange for you when you're there. So Vienna, just a highlight of European river cruising. And that 2-day, 1-night call there gives you a chance to really get a good immersion in the city.
That's great. I've been on one river cruise. I loved it, and we did an overnight. And I forget where we were at, but we were able to meet some friends that we knew in Germany.
That's right. Yeah.
And kind of stay out a little bit later.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I liked about that overnight was you can explore the space a little bit, or wherever you're at.
Yeah, you can go out after dinner. You can stay up after dinner. You don't have to put the kids to bed.
Yes, it was so fun.
Yeah, and Vienna is just full of
can't
everything.
imagine.
I mean, the world is your oyster in Vienna, an incredible city.
Awesome, awesome. So,
and then you're going to go a little bit further up the river to a beautiful scenic valley in the Danube, and it's called the Wachau Valley. It's spelled W-A-C-H-A-U. And it is the home of Austria's apricot growing region. And they do 2 things with apricots. They make brandy and they make jelly. And so you can go there and you can have apricot brandy and apricot jelly. But it's just this idyllic, beautiful countryside. It's a pretty deep valley, so the scenery is incredible. And so you'll have a chance to get off the ship and maybe go see how they make brandy or see how they make the apricot jam. And then you'll visit an abbey. And back in the day, again, Austria is a very wealthy country. And so it has some of the most beautiful churches in the world.
Right.
And this abbey, which is called the Abbey of Melk, is a just beautiful, Baroque, ornate, elaborate abbey church. But what's the most impressive about it is after you've finished up your tour and you've gone through the monastery and through the church, you walk out the front and you're almost at the top of the mountains and you have probably the most beautiful panoramic view of the Danube Valley.
Wow.
So it's a really beautiful sight. I hate to break it to people, but the Danube isn't blue.
Okay.
It's actually kind of brown.
Okay.
But you'll see the blue Danube and you'll see where that was written and why Strauss was inspired to write that.
Wow. It sounds like a place, the way you're describing it, I can just see myself coming out, camera in hand, like
Absolutely.
taking so many pictures.
Yep.
You're just like, beep, 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 you just can't get enough of it.
No, and you just kind of sit there and just drink in the scenery. I mean, it's a really beautiful, this is a really scenic cruise as well.
That's a great way to put it. Drink in the scenery.
Yeah.
Yep, I totally hear what you're
And
saying.
with some apricot brandy to wash it down.
Right. Well, heck yeah. At the Abbey.
Yeah.
My goodness, that's great. Awesome. What a great day there.
Yeah, so now the next port, and actually kind of the last port before the ship turns around and goes back to Budapest, will be in the city of Linz in Austria. And Linz is a small Austrian town along the river. It isn't a particularly interesting town in and of itself. It actually happens to be Hitler's birthplace, by the way. But there are some activities you can do in Linz if you want to. But Ken, I have a question. How do you solve a problem like Maria?
I have no idea.
You're not a Sound of Music fan. Oh, well, your option for a day trip in Linz is to go to the city of Salzburg, where the Sound of Music was filmed.
I know that.
And
Yep,
so
awesome.
they actually have a tour where they will play the music, and you can go see all the Von Trapp family estate. You can see the abbey. You can see the church where the wedding was, and it's a really, really neat thing. And it's it's a little touristy, but it's kind of cool. And then Mozart was actually born in Salzburg as well. So the beautiful old city of Salzburg, tiny, tiny little narrow roads like things were back in the Middle Ages, covered in flowers. Mozart's birthplace is there, some beautiful gardens. There's a huge fortress there. So it's a really neat day trip away from the river up to the city of Salzburg.
That's awesome. And when you say day trip, are you taking a quick bus up there? Or do
Yeah,
you
so
walk?
that's about that. Salzburg is about a 2.5-hour motor coach ride from the river. So this would be the one kind of the full day excursion that you would take, where the other ones are going to be a little more, half day type activities, and you have a little more free time the other days.
Sounds like a beautiful city and one I'd love to
It's an
explore
incredible city, and you'll have to watch the movie sometime, Ken.
I will. I will.
Singing nuns.
I
Julie
don't know
Andrews,
for what-
Christopher Plummer. How can you go wrong?
For whatever reason, it hasn't hit my list yet. I know. It's one of those. It's a classic that you should watch.
You really should.
I mean,
and it's a very interesting history, and it's a true story.
It is.
It's based on. Yeah, so it is based on a true story.
I did not know that. Very nice. Very nice.
So then the ship turns around.
Okay.
And you're going to head back down to Budapest. And you will actually have another overnight stay in Budapest. Really? So you got a little bit of a taste of Budapest at the beginning, and now you'll get kind of the full meal in Budapest. You'll have an opportunity to do some little more extensive excursions, explore the city. One of the other interesting things is to learn about the communist times in Hungary and what that was like, because many, many people who lived there lived through those times. And so there are interesting exhibits and tours you can take where you can learn about that. And it's interesting when you think about kind of the grand sweep of history, but the ways in which that totalitarian state made the mundane so difficult is also a really interesting part of it. Just going to the grocery store or taking your kids to the doctor, and how the totalitarian state changed the way you did that so much that it really left some pretty deep scars in this part of the world. So it's a fascinating city, and I think it isn't in the same realm of major cities like Paris or London, but it's really worth spending some time in, and you get a different perspective on Europe there.
That's awesome. So I know that in some of our AMA Waterway trips, there are extended stays where you can tack on a couple extra days at the end. Is that offered here? And if
Yeah,
so,
there
what's
is
that look like?
Yep, there is an opportunity to spend a little more time in Budapest. I think this cruise, the nice thing is because it's a round trip cruise, this is one that really would be good if you have a little less time.
Okay.
And so some of the river cruises, you can end up going on a 2-week trip by the time you combine the cruise with the pre-cruise and the post-cruise program. This one's going to be more of a shorter cruise, and I think you'll probably have spent a good amount of time in Budapest.
Okay.
Definitely want to get there the day before the cruise leaves, just so you can relax before it starts. But this one is a little shorter and a little more concise for people who just don't have as much time.
Nice, nice. Well, that's awesome. I'm excited. Again, I'm always leaving these shows excited to go on this trip.
Yeah, yeah. I've been to this part of the country, or part of the world, but I have never taken this itinerary because it's new. Yeah. So I think this is just a little different take on kind of the standard Danube River cruise.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode of Explore and More. I'm Ted Blank, the travel expert. I own Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventure, and we've popped details about this particular trip and our contact info in the description below. And Ken, I'll let you take it home.
Thanks so much for joining us. Had a great time as always with you, Ted. I really appreciate your time. We'll see you next week for the Explore and More show.